Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Very happy to have you with us. Really exciting discussion that we have for you today. But before we get there, I just wanted to go through a few things that are upcoming events with DSA and DSEF. First, there's a virtual board meeting upcoming that will be an interactive discussion featuring a DSEF Fellow, Dr. Ann Coughlin from Northwestern University, and a discussion of what constitutes harm in voluntary business arrangements. Obviously an important topic for the industry and regulators of the industry and those that watch the industry closely. So I'd encourage you guys to, all of you, to join that discussion and see a real interactive discussion with Dr. Coughlin and the DSA and DSEF boards. Also encourage you to look at Direct Selling Day on Capitol Hill that's upcoming, the DSA Legal and Regulatory Seminar as well. Many great events coming up. You can access those. We're going to put the sign-up information in the chat with today's discussion, but you can also access those via the DSA website in the calendar section. So encourage you to join those and participate in all of those programs that are upcoming. As most of you know, the Direct Selling Education Foundation has focused the last 3 years in building our academic fellows program. We have partnered with nearly 250 academic leaders across the country who provide us with their research, their insights, their expertise. Really excited about some of that we'll have with us today. The research that our academic fellows do also provides a much needed and accurate database picture of the industry to external audiences, including regulators. So I think a very important function in explaining and advancing understanding of the industry through that program. Our fellows program is also helping us mainstream the industry through the foundation. We've reached more than 150,000 students over the last 3 years. You know, that next generation of leaders, potential customers, sellers, maybe potential regulators and others that are sort of getting a mainstream understanding of the industry and how it fits into the business subjects and other subjects that they're studying, as well as a channel of distribution. We are really happy to have 2 of our fellows with us today that are going to discuss how the COVID-19 crisis makes it mission critical for direct selling companies to be able to extract, visualize, and execute intelligence in real time, or certainly near real time. They're also going to share some really impressive and accessible tools to help you make the most of your data and improve selling performance. It'll be an interactive discussion. I think a lot of really good stuff to sort of see and react to. So we're anxious to hear your questions as we go along. Let me give a brief introduction of our 2 guests. I think many of you are going to recognize them. Both have been frequent contributors at important DSA events, including the annual meetings of the past. Remember those? Sales and marketing conferences, as well as CEO retreats. And they've also worked directly with a couple of companies. So really have been generous contributors of their time and expertise to the industry. And we very much appreciate them and appreciate that contribution that they make. So let me briefly introduce as we get started here. First, Dr. Dana Harrison is Assistant Professor of Marketing and the Stanley T. Williams Faculty Fellow in the College of Business and Technology at East Tennessee State University. Her academic research focuses on the intersection between customer relationship management, sales management, data quality, governance, and analytics. And she integrates that data-driven decision-making, those data-driven decision-making techniques into all the courses that she teaches. Dr. Haya Ajjan is also with us. She's the Faculty Fellow for Innovation and Associate Professor of Management Information Systems at Elon University in North Carolina. Haya founded the Elon Center for Organizational Analytics and teaches data analytics and information systems courses. Her research focuses on better understanding the impact of technology, use on individuals, groups, and organizations. Both have had significant interactions and work with multiple companies and multiple industries. So I want to welcome them and say thank you both for being with us. We really appreciate that. And before I get started, let me remind one more time, I really want this to be an interactive discussion. Haya and Dana have so much to offer, but we want to hear specifically what your questions are, what you want to know, in addition to what we're talking about here. So with that, let's get started. See, our first slide is up. So I guess I would start the discussion off with the first question of, the past 3 months, we've talked about this a lot. There's great examples of pivots by direct selling companies, from in-person parties to virtual selling, and the adoption of unfamiliar technology by the sales force, and so many things that are happening out there. I'm just curious, what trends are the two of you seeing in other companies, in other industries, other channels?
Well, during this pandemic, I think companies have reconsidered how they've been operating. There's this massive transformation among many just to survive, right? That's what we're seeing all the time. These companies of all sizes, they're dealing with this crisis, but they're also preparing for the recovery and what we have to look forward to down the road. We've witnessed as retailers were forced to engage in customers more online, grocery stores extended to pickup and delivery options, restaurants became temporary grocery stores. Some of them have even started selling meal kits, right? And helping so people to learn how to cook at home, be prepared at home. But Harvard Business Review actually recently published an article, and they detailed how some companies in different industries have actually pivoted or made some of these changes and been successful in doing so. But what they were basically saying is that there were a few conditions that were necessary for these changes to actually be successful. And the first one is that the pivot should align with the firm, with actually new trends, such as greater acceptance in working from home. We're seeing that a lot now, higher levels of online purchasing, or simply just remaining at home more often because of the social distance requirements that we have in place. But what will this new behavior do to dating platforms such as Tinder? During this time of social distancing, should they consider following competitors and offer video dating? That might be one way for them to pivot. Second, the article went into talking about how it's critical that a pivot be an extension of the company's current resources and capabilities. This is rather intuitive, but it also should support this overall strategic intent of the organization. And so the e-commerce platform Shopify has actually seized on helping new customers, such as farmers and local stores, by offering cloud-based services to them. And these services support the growth in e-commerce activities that are actually taking place more often now between buyers and sellers at distances less than 15 miles apart. So this pivot extends the existing business model that they've developed to focus on a segment that's typically underserved by larger companies such as Amazon, but become necessary in this current environment that we're facing. And then finally, the pivot should create sustainable profitability while maintaining and improving the customer's perceived brand value. So consider your current consumption patterns versus the last 6 months, right? We've all changed our behaviors. You've probably purchased more paper towels, maybe more hand sanitizer, toilet paper, these things, obviously, if you can find them, groceries to cook at home, cleaners, right? So all these things we've been purchasing more than ever before. So companies such as Unilever have actually shifted their priorities to products that are currently in higher demand, such as these products that we're purchasing. And they're adjusting communications as well to be more focused on safety, comfort, and brand purpose. And so while some of these changes might create sustainable profitability, others really might need to be tweaked or adjusted in the future, but we really anticipate continued evolution of the needs and wants of customers. Because unfortunately, we are facing a situation that is not yet over. But prioritizing products and communications that really meet the needs and wants of customers, it's gonna continue to enhance the brand's value in the minds of customers moving forward. So, to maintain that loyalty. But now consider the changes that your company has actually made or plans to make in the near future. And then let's go ahead and show you how technology can actually be used to pivot in this new normal.
Got it. It's really interesting. AI and cognitive analytics are surely shaping the future, but it's not really just big companies, right? It's small and medium-sized companies that are getting very involved with this. What are some of the tools that can enhance AI capabilities in small and medium companies as well?
Thank you, Gary, for this question. And we thought a good way to get started here is to think about the Pareto Principle of 80-20 rule. That is 80% of the effect comes from 20% of the causes. But we think that this actually could be very valuable when you're thinking about your technology portfolio in the organization. So consider that a lot of times you're trying to get started with something. A lot of times that technology already exists out there, and all you need to do is actually adopt it. And one thing that we're hoping to achieve in this presentation today is to actually show some of those tools that are really affordable and could allow you to basically get started with AI and cognitive analytics. So that 80-20 rule, we believe is really important here to be thinking about. Some of the organizations that we have, Dana, could you please take us to the next slide? Thank you. Some of the organizations or some of the examples that we have been reading about that we feel are very powerful when you're thinking about your digital transformation is to think about things like an AI-enabled answer to customers' questions in real time. And we'll provide some examples there on the mobile platform and how powerful that platform is. Also, we're finding a lot of companies kind of shifting their model to a personal stylist model. And this is interesting because when we think about direct selling, we think about this personal relationship that every seller is creating with their network. So what else or how could we utilize technology to enable those personal connections to even be stronger? So we'll talk a little bit again later on mobile, but this is something that we're seeing commerce websites are starting to offer in a C2C environment or in a B2C environment. So we believe that there will be a lot of power of offering things like this as well in the direct selling industry. The other things that we're looking at is like things that allow you to recommend products based on what your user have seen. And if it is, again, done on a mobile or a personalized level via email, that will also be very powerful. But how do we get there? And, you know, as you think about yourself in the data management maturity, where are you on that scale? And this is something that I would like to kind of talk about a little bit before we dive into the tools.
Right, so analytics can provide insights to enhance decisions that are going to carry your business through tough times and ultimately make it more efficient and profitable, hopefully, right? You're going to have those discoveries that have to help facilitate that. So now is really the time to understand your customers and develop good relationships. Maybe take the leap on the analytics maturity ladder that you see on your screen that aligns with your company's overall business strategies. So this image here that you're looking at is actually from our marketing analytics textbook with McGraw-Hill and Joe Hare. Some of you might be familiar with Joe, and analytics can range from simple to more complex techniques. And so if you notice here on the screen that the higher level of data management maturity also corresponds to an increased competitive advantage. So think about where your company is on this maturity ladder, as Haya was questioning. For example, there are descriptive statistics and visualization, and these techniques explain or quantify the past to answer questions such as how many people have visited your website this month. But although rather fundamental, these results provide a necessary starting point and sometimes even facilitate additional questions for these more advanced analyses. So next we have predictive analytics, builds models based upon the past to really explain the future. For example, maybe your historical customer sales data could function and be used to predict future sales. And then there's prescriptive analytics here that identifies the optimal course of action, such as through optimization modeling to improve maybe supply chain infrastructure. And then finally, there's the newly emerging artificial intelligence and cognitive intelligence that are designed to really mimic human-like intelligence for certain tasks. And we see these a lot nowadays, or more frequently nowadays, such as recognizing objects from an image or even understanding the meaning of a text. And so what is important to keep in mind is that companies have different needs, and what may be valuable for one company might actually not be the best fit for another. So it's likely unnecessary to investigate artificial intelligence techniques, for example, or those cognitive techniques, if your immediate need is maybe just to answer fundamental questions about really what's occurring in your business right now. And let's go ahead and just show you an AI cognitive enabled out of the box tool that will get you going and help allow you to discover some patterns.
So the first tool that we wanted to share with you is actually IBM Cognos Analytics. It's a cloud-based technology that allows you to discover patterns in your data, and it's based on Watson Analytics technology. This tool is really powerful because many of us, you probably could relate to this example, receive spreadsheets in this form, and we're trying to make sense of the data. And maybe what we typically do is we try to insert some charts to kind of like make sense of what is driving opportunities in my business, what are my main markets, where that I'm growing in, and so on. So what IBM has done is they've created this visualization tool that allows you to discover patterns in your data, or let's say auto-discover patterns in your data, because you actually don't have to know the question that you have about your data when you start. It allows you just to see what are some of the prominent relationships. So allow us to show you this a really interesting tool. I think it's important as well for us to mention that we are not associated with any of the tools that we are going to, or the companies that we're going to show you tools for. In our research for the textbook that Dana has talked about with McGraw-Hill, we actually spent a whole year analyzing and kind of studying the market to find those tools that are bringing things that are very valuable to companies and that really are available for small and medium-sized businesses, don't have that very high price tag. So this is one of those tools. For IBM Cognos Analytics, let's say that I take this Excel spreadsheet that I've just shown you, and just basically you drag and drop it to this environment. Then what you will do is you'll come to this environment and you will basically start creating exploration of your data. When you create exploration, what it will do, it will look at all the relationship among all the columns that you had in your data and kind of try to determine what is interesting. And kind of it will allow you to select a column that maybe you want to explore further, or you could just select one of the ones that it recommends to look at. And let's say I'm interested in opportunity amount for my sales, and I want to look at that and kind of explore it further. What it's showing me here is showing me all the different variables that are associated, that have a correlation in a visual manner that's really easy to see with my opportunity amount by US dollar. And let's say I'm interested in route to market, how my opportunities are compared by route to market. All I have to do is I kind of click on route to market, and this will allow me then to see different visualization related to this kind of particular variable. And I can click on it, I can explore it further. I could, for example, see right away very easily that resellers and field sales in the Midwest have a high total sales as compared to all my others. And very easily, I could take this data, manipulate it by average or any other measures that I'm interested in. And one of those features that we really like about this tool is the Watson Analytics that's built into this feature. So rather than having to, like I said before, know all the questions, maybe all I want to do is I want to create a dashboard. Maybe this is a task that you have given other people to do, like go and create a dashboard for me. But look at this. If I come here and I just type in create dashboard, or select even that from the list and hit enter, it will take a few seconds probably, and I should have myself a really nice dashboard based on relationships that Watson thought would be interesting for us to look at. And that dashboard even has different tabs that I can look at and explore further. So this is just one of the many functionalities that's really available with this tool. And we feel this could help you kind of hone down the question that you want to answer about or to ask about your data, so you could further explore via other methodologies. Right? I think one thing to mention here, it's $70 per month to get to use this tool. And Dana and I were actually just looking at the pricing model for IBM, and they had like a 50% off even to get started now. And it's basically month by month basis. But we feel like for $70 a month, a technology like this could really enable or expedite the way that you make decisions at the organizational level when you're looking at your data. All right, another tool that we feel has been really critical is text analytics. And in our talk with a lot of experts in the field and data scientists and so on, they say that 80% of the data out there is actually unstructured data that is text data, text heavy data, let's say, that's kind of waiting to be analyzed and mined for knowledge and intelligence. So from that, we kind of were interested in how companies are adopting text analytics. And we know that some companies have adopted social listening tools to kind of understand what customers are saying about what. A lot of companies go to consulting firms to do this, or maybe some of them, what they do is they hire a data scientist to help them with that. But what's interesting about this field and the way it's evolving via the use of AI and cognitive analytics, these tools are becoming available on the cloud for really any user. Like a technology department could take that and adopt it and make it part of the offerings that they help the marketing department with, or maybe the product development department with. So we would like to show you as well a small demonstration here on text analytics and how it works. This is, again, an Azure product line. You can come to their website and actually take any online review and type it in just to kind of test the product. And then when you set up an account, you will be able to set up a cloud service on their cognitive analytics service, where you can run all your online reviews and kind of get the detailed data that we're about to show you. We went to Amazon.com and we explored some products by Mary Kay, one of our favorite companies. And here what we saw some of the like online reviews, what people are saying. We copied one of the reviews and pasted it here. And then we basically are going to click Analyze to extract knowledge from this online review. And what you will see is in, again, a matter of a few seconds, we're able to see key phrases that the user or the reviewer was talking about. So they're talking about heavy coverage, heavy foundation. You'll be able to see the sentiment for the overall review, but also sentiment by sentence. So it breaks it up for each sentence that we have here in the review, it's broken up. And you can see whether it's negative or positive and review that sentiment. And then the other really nice thing about this is that it shows you there's something in text analytics now that's gaining a lot of momentum about aspect sentiment analysis, which is like if somebody is looking at a specific characteristic of the product, are they typically talking about it with a positive or negative tone? So kind of to understand that they extract as well named entities. And if the review is longer, you will actually see a little bit more data on that. So you will see kind of the full text that's associated with this review. And then you'll be able, if the reviewer has mentioned a brand, you'll be able to click on that and go online to Wikipedia. It actually links back to Wikipedia, so you can read more about what the user is talking about. So really some interesting. Yes.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but can you share your screen?
Oh, you can't see my screen? Oh, no. All right, well, thank you, Dana. So here it is. Well, the review here shows I absolutely love this product. And this was kind of the Mary Kay Amazon review that we took over. Thank you for that, Dana. And then we copied the review. We went to Text Analytics, Microsoft Azure, and we analyzed this review right here. And then we're able, like I was mentioning earlier, to see the key phrases associated with it, the sentiment and that's associated, and so on. So this is the named entity that we're talking about earlier for aspect review. So again, really powerful tool. Like I said before, it's a cloud-based solution. So you'll be able to take all your reviews, maybe in an Excel spreadsheet, upload them, and then see the sentiment by sentence and extract the aspects or the entities that are important.
Yeah,
yeah,
sorry to interrupt you. That's really impressive. And it makes me think last week, we did a webinar with Stephanie Boyer and Charmaine Autaran at Bryant University. And they were talking about social media and how to do it effectively, but specifically talking about the importance of being responsive on social media, whether it's negative messages, positive messages, whatever it is, that you're active, you're responsive, you're seeing, and you're not letting things sit. This seems like a great tool to help make that happen.
Yeah, I think this is such a powerful kind of listening tool to understand your customers. One thing that we actually, as we're reviewing the book, we have learned about is that companies are really responding very actively to those online reviews. For instance, there was one example of Starbucks. So Starbucks introduced a new product, and they were listening on social media in particular for what customers were saying about each aspect in the product characteristics that the customer was describing. So what they noticed about a drink that they have introduced is that customers love the taste in that product, but did not like the price very much. Like the same day, the price was reduced for that product. So kind of that listening and being really active to kind of understand your customer, their needs, their wants, and then really reacting to that immediately is really very powerful. It shows that, you know, like as a relationship-based business, it shows that you're really kind of listening and reacting to their needs and wants. Isn't that neat?
Yeah, it is very neat. You mentioned mobile earlier. I'm curious if you guys have some examples of how mobile technology is used more and more often, and certainly further during the pandemic for these purposes.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing actually that I've done this past semester, I've taught a class about mobile technology. And it's really fascinating to see the growth in the mobile world and how attainable it is now for organizations to program. So I'm going to share with you some of the programs that my students actually have created this past semester, really fairly in a short period of time. And then the other item that we wanted to talk about here is the power of understanding your network visually. So think about your direct selling network. And if you wanted to visualize it to see communities within network, we'll also be able to show that. But let's start first with mobile. One thing, a technology that's now has been out there for a while that we're seeing more and more companies adopt is chatbots. And the idea behind chatbots, it's that availability in 24/7 kind of framework. We're finding that companies wanting to be there for their customers, and more and more companies are implementing within the chatbot that if a customer needs a use beyond what the chatbot can answer, then they refer to an actual person, a personal consultant, to kind of help them answer those questions. But those are some things that show that personalized touch, that you are there for your customers and that you care about them all the time. And the other level of mobile that we're seeing companies implement is related to augmented reality. And this continues to grow, actually. So one thing that you see on the right here is actually an application that I took with my phone. This is the application that my students and I have created. And it allows us to kind of roll the dice. We kind of did this experiment in class where students wrote a program in less than 2 hours, and we're able to create a dice that's kind of virtually augmented, like the one that you see in front of you. If this is something that you have not yet invested in, we believe that it is definitely time to look into tools like this, especially in time when sadly physical distancing is our new reality, and people are trying to stay at home and safe. And these tools don't take that long to actually set up. So companies like the one that Dana talked about earlier, like Shopify, that you'll see on the next slide, can actually help you create an immersive shopping experience using AR. And they have a template. So they ask you to upload images of your products that are taken at different angles. And then from that, they can create an image like that bicycle. Yesterday, actually, we had a nice conversation about how bicycle is in high demand in this season because a lot of people are staying active. So Dina, if you could run that video for us so we could show how it comes alive. Thank you. So imagine if you wanted to kind of get a sense of the bicycle, what it looks like virtually in your space, you're able to actually do that. And then when you decide to buy it, you click on buy this product. And again, Shopify has a really nice option for customers to start there. And the pricing for that is like $299 per month for advanced features. But we feel those type of features show that the company is innovative and it's bringing products to the customer's space, which is really, again, very helpful in this time and day. All right. So Dana, next slide. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, I was a little stuck. So the development and the widely adopted use of digital platforms has really facilitated network connections. And Haya kind of mentioned, social media a little bit earlier, but to some people, we might not have ever connected if it weren't for places like LinkedIn, right? Think about the number of connections that you have there. And I wouldn't have met all of these people just doing what I do every single day. So LinkedIn, Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter, and Pinterest, they're just some of the most popular social network platforms that really connect us on a global level, right? Not just in our local geographical area. And it's estimated by 2023, there will actually be 3.43 billion social network users worldwide. And to put this into perspective, about 10 years ago now, in 2010, worldwide social network users had not even reached 1 billion. So quite a substantial amount of growth there. But we know that companies rely on social networks to communicate with followers, to personally extend their reach, but companies, they obviously want to also have followers engage with them actively on social media platforms and then further spread that message through their own networks. But conducting this social network analysis actually helps us identify relationships, influencers in the network, information dissemination patterns, and then behaviors as well among connections in these networks. So what they're talking about, how they're sharing information. And so you can imagine that networks offer a tremendous source of insights into customer beliefs, their attitudes, their behavior from other social influences. But let's consider Twitter, right? How do people connect? What discussions and terms are really guiding the network there? Who are the influencers, the people that are most well connected with others versus those followers in the network? And then many companies collaborate with these influencers to disseminate certain messages because they're also considered authentic by the population, and they're trustworthy, they're a credible source of word of mouth communication. So it's important to recognize that most customers perceive word of mouth recommendations as very credible. And even 71% of people actually report that social media referrals actually influence their purchase decisions. That's quite a substantial amount. So social network analysis really allows companies to monitor conversations about the critical topics and the relationships occurring from the interactions, but also using these insights, companies can better understand their direct seller needs, their customer behavior, their preferences, and more. So now let's actually introduce you to a social network analysis tool that produces visual maps to trace these connections.
All right, I'll remember to share my screen this time. Here we are. So one thing that we feel from a direct selling perspective that's really powerful is to understand who are the influencers in your network? Who are really those powerful influencers that if you wanted to pass a message around or if you wanted to recruit more direct sellers, will be really the people to go to. And in order to do that effectively, there is this theory of social network analysis that would allow us to visualize people's connection to really understand who's really central to the network, and if they're removed, could really kind of break up the network, or if they are invested in, they will help us grow the network. So with that, what we could do is we could take this very simple spreadsheet and put kind of a source and a target, where the source is the person who has recruited someone else. And you just organize this network by a source and a target, as you see here. And then there's this tool that actually an Australian tool that Dana and I have gotten a chance as well to talk with the person who manages this tool. It's a very powerful visualization of a network. And what we did is we took the Excel spreadsheet that we just showed you and we uploaded it. And it will show you how people are connected to each other. So it shows you who's central to the network, and when they are central to the network, how important are they? So you could very easily run a metrics, let's say, to identify influencers in your network. And you calculate it, you add a layer. And by the way, each of these matrices, when you run them, you're able to see as well what they mean statistically as they're being calculated. And then let's say that I want to actually identify these people visually. So what is showing us here, any person in blue these are influencers in the network. So if I wanted to kind of understand my network better or send a specific marketing message to influencers in the network, this will help me identify those influencers. This data can be taken from your direct selling recruitment data. It could also be taken from social media and how people interact with each other, or which is work that actually we have been involved in the direct selling channel. And then you could understand this network, kind of connect with these people, train them to grow the networks. One other area that we feel is really important, we understand that demographics sometimes is really important. So maybe you wanted to grow a specific part of the network based on age, based on possibly race. So if this is something that is of interest, you could take those networks that are maybe of a younger generation, and you wanted to understand the influencers within those networks that maybe could recruit more people that are like them, then you want to grow that network this way. So again, a very powerful tool that in fact, we're kind of talking, Dina and I, this tool costs only about $20 per month to get a subscription to. And again, we believe that this could really help the company visualize this network, understand it, and capitalize on that understanding. Here we are. So now I think from here, what we want to do is we want to drive more of the recommendations. So kind of taking all the things that we have talked about, kind of thinking about this as you apply it to your organization. What does it really mean? And Dana is going to take us through that. You're muted, Dana.
Where do we really begin? Because really the list of options can be very overwhelming. I mean, we showed you just a few things here today, but if you start Googling, you'll realize how many options you have available out in the market. So new tools and the potential insights, they can be very exciting, right? You just want to jump in, but it's recommended that before adopting new tools, you should consider how the tools insights align with the company's overall business strategy. Because there's really no value in heavily investing in something advanced like artificial intelligence, which was one of the levels that we showed you on those earlier slides. But there's really no value in heavily investing in that if your immediate needs are really more predictive in nature. So, and finally, you need to understand the competitive landscape, how competitors are using technology, and then how to gain a competitive advantage through using certain technologies. And now, we would like to take your questions if you have any.
Sure, and I want to encourage everyone in the among the participants again, please use that Q&A function. We'd love to hear your questions. We want to make sure that this is interactive. And Dana, if you wouldn't mind unsharing your screen, we can track those a little better. But I have one question. I mean, there's a wide range of technology use and adoption, AI use and adoption among DSA member companies. How do mission and strategy factor into moving forward those adoptions?
Yeah, we believe that it should drive, especially in time of disruption like the one that we live in. So we believe that your mission alignment, like Dana was talking about earlier, is really, really critical to kind of drive the right business questions that you want to answer. So technology very easily could become a kind of something that may take you away from the focus of your business. So we believe that technology is a tool that can be used only to facilitate and kind of encourage or advance your mission. This is something that we're noticing right now in a lot of industries. Actually, more recently, I was in a board meeting with our higher education leader, and we're talking about that exact point on how our mission should be driving all the decisions that we make and which technology that we need to adopt, so we could be connected to our students better. So this is, I think, the critical thing. What could really help us build that relationship with our customers the way that so we could share our mission and our value with our customer in the most seamless way. And technology is the tool to help you do that, but it should be the right technology for your company for sure.
Sure. Are you seeing challenges where companies are maybe getting lost in the technology? It becomes a distraction. They're misusing, they're grabbing the wrong tools, trying to do too many things? Trying
to do too many things for sure. So that's why I think looking at your technology as a portfolio and kind of actually there are some tools out there. So looking at it as a portfolio and aligning that portfolio with your mission is really, really critical. And kind of understanding which tools we believe in when we talked about this in the textbook as well, we believe in a toolbox approach. So meaning that it's not one tool that's going to solve, this particular problem that you have, but it's different tools that will allow you to advance that particular mission. But finding what those right different tools are for you is really critical, and based on the skills that you have within, and again, the questions that you're trying to answer.
Sure, sure. Tell us a little bit, you've mentioned the book a couple of times. You guys are literally writing the textbook on this, I think along with Joe Hare, but I'd be curious to know a little more about that process and where you are in that process and how the book is structured.
Well, thankfully, in terms of the process, it's finished, but so it's in McGraw-Hill's hands at this point. But the textbook, really, we wanted to, and Haya mentioned some of this, but we really wanted to be application-based, and it really focuses on, that being able to understand the method, but also maybe not so much on a deeper level, but just understanding the method. It contains a small amount of theory to introduce the method, but it really focuses on easy understanding of the topic, but really emphasizes that business application. Because we find that a lot of times that's the disconnect, right? You can maybe obtain the insights, but then that business application, there might be a disconnect. So really emphasizing the application. And so this textbook is application-based. That was the goal of the purpose of the textbook.
Gotcha. I'm curious if you could say a little more about some chat conversation about the augmented reality and how that gets used and who can most benefit from using that.
Yeah, that's a really powerful technology. So just to give you a little bit of background, there's a development platform or programming language that's called Swift. That is an open source platform that's commonly used right now for app development in both actually, mainly in the iPhone environment, but also in some of the Android environment. And what we're seeing with that is there are templates that could be utilized to create augmented reality. So who should use it? I would say any company that currently has a mobile platform should be looking at augmented reality. And again, like I said before, I think this is really essential, is that all you have to do is there are measurements that you will have to adhere to in terms of taking pictures for your products and sending them to a company like Shopify, and then they will be able to create that AR image for your customers. We understand that this is an added work and added responsibility, but in times like the ones that we live in, if a customer could see the product in front of them, it really creates that more engaging experience, especially if it's a space that kind of makes sense for it. And I know Dana and I, in some of the research that we have done, we have found other technology as well that is kind of utilizing machine learning, where, for example, image recognition has been utilized at success at times by some of the companies. But for example, for companies that like Mary Kay that offer beauty products, one thing that you could do is you could actually analyze the skin type, so you could make recommendations for what product would be most applicable for the user. So this is another use of mobile technology that we have seen and that has been really successful.
What are some of the biggest fumbles you've seen, people trying to make this transition?
That's a good question. What do you think, Dana? So some of the, I think maybe starting small is really essential. So not, again, it's not a very costly thing to start with, but starting small and seeing how customers are behaving and responding to it, I think would be really important to kind of make that link before kind of jumping into the bigger implementation. I don't know, Dana, can you think of examples that we have read of where it was kind of a very negative?
I mean, the only thing I could think of are companies that really invested heavily in maybe app adoption, and then it really failed because I think that they were very excited. They thought it would take off, and maybe there just wasn't a strategy in place to promote it up front. And so we see things like that where, it's basic app technology, but really the support wasn't there to sort of get it off the ground and publicize it or communicate it with customers. So I think that that is actually, you know, it's very general, but I've seen, you know, cases like that. And I think that that's pretty common, that they find that they heavily invest in something, but maybe it wasn't, you know, a well thought out or well planned out strategy. And they just maybe lack the resources too at that point to really support it any further. Sure. Resources are, you know, they're an issue for everyone. So.
Of course, that's and I want to encourage once more our audience, please send us questions via the Q&A function. We'd love to hear from you and love to sort of discuss what's on your mind. We've had one comment, a request that if you guys could share in some form, perhaps share with us and we can share out some of the sources for your research that you've mentioned. There was a request to make that available, and I think that'd be interesting. You know, we've had a really rich discussion and some great demonstrations, but I'm always curious about this question when we go through conversations like this. What should we have asked you that we didn't ask?
So I think like one thing when it comes to technology in particular, there is this concept of continuous learning, and I really would invite everybody to kind of to pause here and kind of think about specifically the technology department and kind of how we can always make sure that they have all the resources that are needed, but they have the kind of the knowledge of the most recent tools. So I guess one thing, and this is something like a theme that we carried throughout the book, because we talked about like application-based learning, we talked about its importance. So I guess one item that I would love to kind of emphasize here is that this is a learning journey kind of when it comes to technology. Those of you who may have seen presentations that I made before, in fact, as we're writing the book, things were changing. So like something that we wrote last October, by the time we like are now getting the book into production, we noticed that a lot of the features have changed. So it's really and this is less than a year. So that continuous learning, I think, and how you keep up with that is really, really critical. And I think that should be kind of something taken into consideration all the time.
Yeah, and I think that's one of I think the great benefits we have of being able to connect and partner with you guys and your world, in that we can keep up with that, but also sort of have that continuous learning, continuous input, and following what's going on in other industries, following what's going on in ours. Certainly as well. Dana, how about you? What have we left off the table that you think is important that we make sure we cover?
I think, you know, when we talk about adopting technology, I think, and, you know, something to take into consideration here, and it kind of centers around Haya mentioning the technology department, and then, you know, that continuous learning. But I think it's not really up to one department or another. And I think that's something that's critical to remember, is that really this is this should be an organizational approach. And so, you know, a lot of times, and we've really started seeing this probably just over the last maybe 5 years, maybe less than that even, maybe the last couple of years, but we see companies actively developing these interdisciplinary groups of people to really explore, so that the technology, we understand the capabilities, you know, from the technology side, but we understand the application from the business or the marketing side or whatever it is. So there's those collaborations that are taking place very heavily in companies when they are adopting these technologies, because, you know, as a marketer, I might not understand all the technology behind it or all the capabilities, whereas maybe, you know, with Haya, I mean, you know, some type of collaboration there is very, very critical for a company. So.
Right. That's helpful. That's interesting. You know, something just came in from our audience I think is interesting. When you talk about the continuous learning, certainly these platforms and forums we're proud of, but what sources are out there that you would recommend for company leaders or others to keep up and to make sure that they're really following something that's current?
No, I mean, and Haya can follow me up on this too, because I know she has a gazillion that she probably can mention, but I'm just thinking off the top of my head, things like Coursera, but there are also companies called like DataCamp. And so there are just so many numerous options nowadays. We're so fortunate to have these low cost, sometimes free options for us to continue learning these new capabilities. these new tools and techniques.
Yeah, I think I'll add to that, one source that was very useful as we were writing the book, like Harvard Business Review articles are very, very, and they have kind of several that are published on daily basis around topics that are really important for us today in marketing and sales and in analytics. So I think those articles as well will help drive some of those decisions to then decide what course or what thing I want to learn about more and kind of dive deeper. Also, another thing that I want to mention, probably local university in your area, it doesn't have to be local anymore, but a university in your area, if you could establish those partnerships like DSEF has done with faculty members who are doing cutting edge research in those areas, I think that's really useful. I have actually many of my friends, I have like a chief analytics officer friend at a Fortune 500 who always kind of pings me and he's like, okay, I'm trying to find a data source for this thing, or is this a good tool? Like, have you used it before? So I think having that personal connection as well. And I think through the DSEF, I'm sure you have access to all of us. So if we could be of any service or support to you, Nancy, as you continue that journey of learning, we're happy to be there for you. So just connect with us.
All right, that's great. You have another question from Michelle McDonough. Are there better sources to use as a startup, say, versus a $500 million company?
So better tools to use as a startup. This is kind of interesting because we're seeing those lines kind of get blurred up. So one thing that we're noticing with the larger companies is that they've already invested a lot in certain products. For example, SaaS products or like IBM kind of enterprise solutions. So a little bit hard for them, I think, sometimes, because this is what their employees know, to back out of this. I think a startup has the privilege of not having, not being tied down to any platform that your employees know. And the cloud-based technology today that is becoming available at a very, as you saw, very really reasonable cost, could enable you to do things that the large organizations do. Open source as well is very powerful. This is something that we talk about in the book. We actually have 2 chapters that show, for example, how text analytics is done in Python. And you could do everything almost that gets done in a large enterprise solution, but you could do it for free. So, and again, all you need is a Coursera, probably a resource like Dana mentioned, a help book, and you can get started. So this is really an exciting time, I think, for startups to kind of look at competing with larger firms with the tools that are available today on the cloud or open source.
Yeah, very powerful and very accessible, and really enjoyed and appreciate what you guys have shared with us. And Haya, you did it better than me, but I'll mention once again that DSEF and DSA certainly will remain a source on this. We follow your work closely, share your work widely, as well as from your colleagues among the 250 or so fellows in DSEF and beyond. So I want to thank the 2 of you, not just for today. Let me hold on one second here. We might have one more for you. Not just for today, but for the way you've engaged with the foundation and the industry over the last 3 years has been fantastic. Your work is so impressive and really valuable to us. So thank you for that partnership, and thank you for what you shared today. We'll share this out and push it out. We encourage everyone that's with us today to share the recorded conversation with their colleagues. And also we encourage you to support the foundation and our work to provide these insights, to do this research, and to mainstream through reaching these 150,000 students that we've reached to date. So we encourage you to go to our website, which is, the address is in the chat function. Also in the chat function, I'll remind you, are links to sign up for the DSA and DSEF events I mentioned. I'll go through that one more time. We have a combined board meeting, virtual board meeting of the DSEF and DSA that will feature Dr. Ann Coughlin, another DSEF fellow from Northwestern University, talking about the meaning and the definition of harm in voluntary business relationships, really encourage everyone to join us for that and to be a part of that discussion. Look into Direct Selling Day on Capitol Hill. That will be different than certainly we're used to, and the upcoming legal and regulatory seminar as well. We encourage you and your teams to participate in that. And we thank you all for being a part of.
Gary, before you go, this is Joe Mariano. One last question that's so important, you know, like on these radio talk shows and everything that they do. Where can we get the book?
Good call, Joe.
Haya, where can we get it?
Go ahead, Dana. Where she has the ISBN number.
I do actually, but it might take me a minute to find, but I can definitely get that information to Gary. It will be available in early 2021. So it's right now, it's currently in production. And so should be available maybe even online at the end of 2020 and then available in print at the 2021. But if you do have any questions, I mean, please feel free to reach out to Haya and I before then, because we can really provide you those step-by-step case studies. We can actually go ahead and provide you if you have a desire to maybe get an introduction to Python or something like that. So we can communicate with you, you know, as well. You can indirectly.
That's great. Thanks, Dana. And thanks, Joe.
Thank you for having us today. We really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely.
The opportunity to share.
Very much so. It's always great seeing you.
Yes, you guys as well. And I want to encourage everyone to join us next week. We'll have Dr. Michael Solomon with us to talk about consumer behavior in the new normal. Michael's sort of a widely renowned expert on consumer behavior and one of our fellows as well. And really look forward to the conversation with Michael next week. You'll be hearing promotion on that. There's also a link to be a part of that discussion. But Haya and Dana, can't thank you enough, and we look forward to continuing the conversation and the work together and the partnership.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you very much, Gary.
Thanks again, all, and thanks for joining us.